Okay, guys, we're doing creating some network shares, and we're also going to do some storage pools today, which is chapter 4 and 5 in the book. So the first thing we're going to do is join our computer to the domain. The last computer we had on our domain was the WDS server, and it had an IP address of 0.4. So we're going to make the file server 0.5. So on the file server, make sure you're on the file server. From the server manager, go to local server, then click on IPv4 address. Go into properties. I'm going to go to IPv4, then go to properties again. Our real machine is the router for our network, and our DC is 0.2. That's going to be our DNS server. That's going to resolve names. I'm sorry? No. In real life I would, but for this environment we only have one DNS server. I'm going to click OK. Close. Then back to the server manager, I'm going to click on computer name. That's not the computer name field. You have to click change. Your station number, FS. My station number is CS01-FS. You choose whatever's appropriate for you. No, I'm CS01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. CS06. Okay, no problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, Melanie, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. If you notice, the first thing he did, when I said station number, he looked on the table. A lot of times, all the computers will have, guys, my Pennsylvania accent comes out when I say this, so I'm writing it. And basically, that's the number we use for computers in inventory. Most organizations use that as the name. So that's what he was looking for. He was looking for the asset tag. Also, I'm going to join it to the domain, contoso.com, for central authentication. Without that, I'd have to create a user account on each individual machine. I'm going to click OK. And type in contoso/administrator. And our standard password. Guys, give me 1 second. Let me just get. I'm gonna click OK. 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 And close until it prompts me to reboot. So when you sign in, make sure you click on Other User and sign in with that same user account, Contoso /administrator.
Do we restart or log out?
You can just log out.
Log out.
Click OK and reboot.
And when you sign in, go to Other User. We're going to go to Add Roles and Features.
Nitoso.
/ administrator.
Click OK. Okay, and so we deal with a lot of IP addresses.
That is a good tip. Okay, so just help them join it to the domain. So I'm going to do add roles and features. And I'm going to keep going until I get to server roles. And I'm going to expand file and storage services. Then expand file and iSCSI services. Then choose file server. Okay, then click next and walk through, after you check file servers, click next and walk through the wizard. Expand. Then walk through the wizard. Guys, I'm doing this to show you to be more complete, but if you don't install file server, it'll automatically install itself once we create a network share. Restart if necessary, then install. Then I'm going to click close. Okay, come over there. Okay. So, guys, there's 3 ways to create a network file share. A really old school method, an old school method, and the new method. I'm just going to show you briefly the really old school method. You would right click the start menu, go to computer management, and you could start creating shares right here. Network shares in this spot. In the past, when we needed to remote into a machine, this was the only way to create a network file share. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but you can deal with file shares here. Sometimes when all other methods fail and you're trying to remove a file share, this might be an easy way to do it. So just be aware that it's there. So I'm going to close that out, go to my C drive. Since 2012 and later, there's been a convention, not a requirement, that you create a folder called shares. Under that folder, you create folders you want to share. So the folder called shares isn't shared. Everything underneath it is. So I'm going to right click my C drive and go to folder, new folder, and create a folder called shares. Go into that folder and create a new one called data. Okay, so now we're going to share this folder called data. We're going to right click data, go to properties. Click on sharing, then click on advanced sharing. And then check the box. I'm going to move this over to the side because I want to explain something. I have two sets of security permissions. These are called share permissions. Sometimes they might be called NetBIOS permissions. They're really old school permissions that we inherited back from Windows NT, back in the 80s, or actually early 90s. And then we have the new style security permissions. If this was FAT32, it was an NTFS, we would only have these permissions. With the introduction of NTFS, it introduced the ability to add more security permissions. So when a FAT32 drive, you only have these. In a NTFS, you have both. It can get very confusing how to configure the permissions. These permissions, these share permissions, guys, a lot of times this is called share permissions. These are called security permissions, NTFS permissions. You know, the names kind of evolved over the years. Right now, I think what they're calling it is security permissions. And these are share permissions. The share permissions only apply over the network. So if someone's sitting at the machine, they have no effect. The security permissions apply over the network and locally. So if I had share permissions and security permissions, the most restrictive applies. So if I had a user and I gave them read share permissions, read write, NTFS permissions, and they're sitting at the machine, what permissions do they have? These don't apply if they're sitting locally. These only apply over the network. So in this case, these aren't effective. These are the permissions. So if they're local, I'm sorry, you're right. I was thinking over the network. So right now, if they're sitting locally, these are the most restrictive. What if they're accessing the share over the network? Which one applies? The read-write. What happens if I do this? Give everyone full permissions. I'm just going to write full. And then read-write. And they're accessing it locally. What permissions do they have? Read-write. Because they're the most restrictive. What if they were doing it over the network? Which is the most restrictive? these don't apply at all over the network. By giving everyone full control on the shared permissions, they're making them not effective at all. That's how you turn them off. If you're in a domain environment and you create a share through the new school method, it automatically does that for you. The share permissions, everyone gets full control, and then you lock it down with security permissions. So you don't even use these permissions. Guys, if I had outside door and a door to this classroom, to get into this classroom, and I gave everyone a key to the outside door, how effective is that lock? You might as well not even lock it if everyone has a key. So essentially that's what we're doing. We're just not even considering these permissions because we're going to give everyone full control. Everyone is already there, just give them full control. So these share permissions aren't effective. Then click OK. Now we have these security permissions. Over time, permissions on folders get changed. People hide themselves, people do things to them.
So you did or didn't do anything under the share permissions?
I did. I went and gave everyone full control.
Full control and change, or just that enables it all?
That enables it all. So when you click full control, and the share permissions are really old, so they're really not very granular. So over time, guys, permissions get really screwed up. It's a big problem for all corporations. Number one, people don't understand what they're doing, and they just give themselves full control, and they really should. So I want to explain what this group is and what this group is. When I join my computer to the domain, one of the things that I'm doing is something called group nesting. What makes a domain controller, what makes a domain admin a domain admin? You can just watch this. Why can an admin account update the time and a regular user can't? Why can an admin do backups and a regular user can't? Why can the admin account create user accounts and others can't? So basically, this is what makes an admin account an admin account. We have something called a local security policy, and who can change the time? The administrator account. Who can change the time zone? The administrator account. Who can force a shutdown? Administrators. Who can all kind of things. You know how you when you create a file, you're the owner of the file. When you're the owner of the file, you can always change permissions. So who's allowed to take ownership of any file? The administrator account. So you can't really block the administrator account from accessing your files, because if he can take ownership to it, he can change the permissions. So this is where the administrator account gets its authority. If I go right-click my start menu and go to computer management, and I go to groups. These are local groups. These are local groups, and right above that is local user accounts. So when this machine was installed, it created a group called administrators, created an administrator account, and added them to that group. Every time you create a new user, locally, not on the domain, they become a member of the users group. So how does our domain admin have local administrator rights? When I join this computer to the domain, it automatically domain admins local admins. So this is something that happened when we joined this computer to the domain. It also made domain users local users. So if you're a domain user, you don't have any special privileges. When you sign into this machine, you'll be like a local user. If you're a domain admin, when you sign into this machine, you'll be like an administrator account. It's done with group nesting. That's kind of important. So right now, the users group has read, execute, list folder, and read. A few years ago, Microsoft combined read and execute as one because people were getting confused. If you want someone to have read access to a folder, they need read and execute. Because when you open a folder, it actually executes that folder. So it's important that you give for a folder read execute just so they can open it. You just give them read only rights, they can't open the folder. Which users will be part of this group? That will include local users and domain users, right? As a domain admin, you don't want that to happen. Because you know something, you can control the domain, but you don't go around each workstation and see what local users are on the workstation. So you don't know what they are. So normally when you create a network share, if someone creates a local user account, they would be added to that share. So maybe that's not something you want to allow to happen. So I don't want to allow users, which include local users and domain users, to have a right to this share. I only want domain users. Because those are the user accounts I can control. I don't want to go to each machine and check how many local users there are. Because anyone, if you're a local admin to your machine, your workstation, you can create a local user and give yourself rights to a folder. Maybe that's not something I want to happen. So we want to remove this account and make it domain users only. You see how this is grayed out? When I click advanced, what's happening right now is when I click advanced, it brings me to the new school method. Kind of brings me. So when we go to the new school method, you'll see the same window. So are the permissions set on this object? Are the permissions set on the data folder, or are they set somewhere else? They're set on the C drive, copied to the shares folder, then copied to data. They're inherited. They're not set on the data folder. Which means if I want to change these permissions, I would have to go change them on the C drive, and that would affect everyone. So what I want to do is disable inheritance, meaning don't inherit the permissions from the C drive, just set them on this object directly.
We've been working on the data properties specifically the whole time. I think I opened shares on accident and was doing it there. Did you do something on the shares property or only on data?
Only on data.
Okay.
Okay, but I'll show you how to fix it in 1 second. So what you want to do is disable inheritance, then convert the permissions you inherited to be set on this object. So now they're not inherited, they're set right on this object. Now things aren't grayed out, we can actually mess with it.
So I shared this, but I'm doing that.
Okay, good. That's what you want to do.
Okay.
Okay, now go to data.
And pretty much do this.
Permissions. Hey, click OK. Click OK. Go to security. Click on advanced.
and click on disable parents. Then convert.
Okay, so basically, the permissions are set here. Guys, I could do everything I want from this screen, but I want to go back to the old school method. I'm just going to click OK. And I can see they're no longer grayed out. In 2008, I'm going to click Edit.
The special permission is still great.
It should work for you.
Oh, don't worry about that. I'll explain what that is in a little bit. He's saying it's still gray down here. I'll show you why that is. So guys, back in the day when you click edit, you didn't have an edit button right here. What's the difference between this box and this box? Well, these two buttons used to be right here. I don't know why they have us open up a new screen. Yeah, again, this is the old school way of doing it. So I'm going to highlight users and remove. And then I'm going to add Craig. Sorry, type domain users. Don't click check names. Just click OK. So we remove the local users group that includes local users and domain users, and just put in domain users because I can control domain groups. I don't go around mainly controlling local groups.
So edit,
It will be too much work.
we're removing users and we're adding just domain users.
What's the difference between full control and modified? Full control, modified, they can create folders, read folders, change files, things like that, delete files. What's it? But when you, full control can do all that plus change permission. You don't want to allow other users to change permission because then over time your permissions get out of control. So there's a thing called the least privileges, a concept. Only give them the privileges they need to do their job and nothing more. You know, if you want less headaches, give everyone full control. Because then they won't call you every time they need to change something. But in the long run, you're going to get more headaches when a piece of data was stolen in and your job's on the line. So, because they gave somebody that you don't know about permission to do that folder. So, rarely do you want to give full control. You normally want to give modifier rights, full control strictly for the administrators. Or for the manager or something like that. The person who needs to give rights should only have full control. Click OK. Click Close. And now we created a network share. Okay, let's go into, guys, in Windows 10, this is automatically not hidden, but in Windows Server, it is hidden. So I'm going to highlight the little drop-down box and uncheck Minimize the Ribbon. See the little arrow pointing down? Uncheck Minimize Ribbon. Okay, actually, guys, let's take a break, and then we'll come back and do this. Yeah, so you have this top bar right here. Let's take a break and then we'll come back. Guys, do me a favor, remind me to unpause. Okay, we're back to the file server. So guys, we expanded our ribbon. If I click on different objects, the ribbon changes. But if you click on this PC, you have this Map Network Drive button.
Did you unpause?
I did. So click on Map Network Drive. Starting with Z, going backwards, are the available drive letters. You can give it any drive letter you want, like N for network share or whatever. Try to avoid using like D, E, F, and things like that, because if someone sticks in a thumb drive, they might be using it. So try to avoid these lower letters. So I'm just going to choose N. And then I'm going to put in CS01, FS. Now guys, if you didn't put a hyphen, I know some of you didn't put a hyphen, you got to stick with the names that you used. Then data. This naming convention is called UNC, Uniform Naming Convention. Put in the server name, then the resource name. That resource name could be a shared printer or a shared folder. So you might see it called as SMB, small message block or server message block. I don't know what the real name of it is anymore. This was invented and owned by IBM back in the day. Does anyone remember this OS? OS2? Basically, IBM and Microsoft got together and created OS2. And then they had an argument, they split. Microsoft continued developing, IBM continued developing OS2, and you'll find a lot of mainframes still today. And Microsoft went on to create NT server, which eventually became the server that we're using now. So this was like the predecessor of Windows Server. And when they did that, they came up with this naming convention. They own SMB, network share. Guys, when I format my C drive NTFS, what is NTFS? New Technology File System. It's a file system, a local file system. When we share a drive, it's a network file system. So it's just a file system, just like NTFS. This one is done over the network, this one is done locally. So the local NTFS path shares data. The SMB path is CS01. Both refer to the same location. This is using the SMB file system. This is using the NTFS file system. Nowhere, you cannot tell from the SMB path what the local path is going to be. It's just, even though they're the same location, I don't care how many folders deep that network share is, it's always going to be server name, share name. So click OK, or finish, and then we have this data drive. That's how we do it graphically. I'm going to right click and disconnect it. Here's how we do it from a command prompt. We have an old school command called net space use asterisk we could do it that way. A lot of times when people create scripts when you boot up your computer, they created a script with that in it. What drive letter did it give it?
Z.
Z. Starts at Z and goes backwards. I'm going to disconnect it again.
Do you change the drive letter?
Now I'm going to change the drive letter to M as in Mary. So if you put an asterisk, it'll choose the next available drive letter starting from Z going backwards. Or you could hard code it with a certain drive letter. So either way, this mapped it to Z because that was the free drive letter. Here I mapped it to M. So I have this map drive. I'm going to go back and do some more permission stuff. So I'm going to minimize this, go to my DC. I'm going to sign into my domain controller. And from the server manager, go to Active Directory users and computers.
So you're assigning an admin?
Yes, incidentally,
You're going to go under user or administrator?
administrator. You cannot sign in as a local admin. Guys, I just want to point this out. When you promote a computer to a domain controller, it no longer has local accounts. Every other machine that you join to the domain has local accounts and domain accounts, except for domain controller. A domain controller has no local accounts, so there's no way to sign in as the local admin. So I'm going to go to Active Directory users and computers. I'm going to highlight the users container. I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to call that group cells. Now I'm going to go and create a new user. User 1, U1. Then I'm going to set my standard password.
I just looked at this and I was like, can't escape.
You have options. You went forward.
You want me to prep that for next time?
You want.
I
So, user one. Click on your first name is you, last name is Owen. And then you want after. No, just no.
And I have it on the board. Uncheck that box, everyone. So we're not prompted to change the password. In real life, don't do this.
Oh, shoot.
It's all right. It's no big deal. I'll show you how to fix it. Listen, what is PCI compliance? Payment card industry. If you're going to be a security person, you'll do a lot of stuff with payment card compliance. Basically, if your company accepts credit cards, you have to prove you're secure. So once a day, once a week, you're going to have a third-party company attack your network from inside and outside. And if there's any issues, you have to fix them within 24 hours and take that server down. If you don't, they will stop processing credit cards. So we hire a company called Symantec to come in and attack our network. And back when I did real work for a living, and if I got a PCI compliance, I had to stop everything to get that fixed. If I didn't, that server would took it offline. If you check this, user cannot change the password, you might get hit with a PCI compliance issue. When would you ever want to use that? Like if you have an email kiosk that automatically signs in, you don't want to allow the user to at that point, that user account needs to be locked down really well, like we did with the joint domain account. You know, we trained that joint domain account. Well, in a case like that, you're going to have to justify why that account exists when you get hit with a PCI compliance. You generally only have to do that once. But never do that, you know, never set this password and it never expires. You know, you might not let the user change it, but that means once every 45 days, the admin account will have to change it. So you never want to check this. If you do, you're definitely going to get with the PCI compliance. I've seen network admins do that. And they wonder why they get attacked. The last is account is disabled. Don't delete accounts. Disable them. Because if they encrypted something and you delete the account, recreating an account doesn't create the exact same account. Then account name U1 is for us as people. The computer sees a GUID, a global unique ID. So when you create a new account, it'll have a different GUID. So at that point, the computer will see it as a different account. If you disable the account, you can always re-enable it, reset the password, sign in, and unencrypt any data that you want. You might have some sort of law preventing you from doing it. I work for the state. We have to keep that account disabled for 7 years. So there might be some regulation that prevents you from deleting an account. But in general, I wouldn't delete it unless you know there's absolutely no data there that you want to manipulate. So guys, I'm going to right click U1 and add to a group. I want to just type cells, then click OK. Just right click U1, click on add to group, then type cells and OK. Then I'm going to right click it again and go into properties. I'm going to click on Member Of tab. So this user is a member of two groups, the domain users group and the sales group. Every time I create a new account, they're automatically added as domain users. Then I manually add them to the sales group. So we're going to go back I'm gonna click OK. I'm gonna go back to our file server.
I think we're just double checking that everything is sales group.
Yeah, we were just double checking. We didn't make any changes. I just wanted to show you by default, you added to the domain users, and we also added you as a member of the sales user group. Okay, so I'm back on my file server. I went to this PC, the C drive, and shares folder. I'm going to go to properties. Then I'm going to go to security permissions. Then edit. Based on what you see here, does U1 have permissions to this folder, and if so, what are the permissions? Right, so U1 would have modify rights. What if I didn't want anyone in the sales group to have permissions to this folder? Regardless of whether they're in part of another group. So if you're in the sales group, and I don't care what other group you're in, I don't want you to be able to do anything to this folder. So I'm going to add sales. Then deny full control. So deny takes precedence over any allow. So right now, U1 has permission to have modified rights to this folder. But sales have denied that will overwrite any other permissions that user has. Normally, if you don't want to give someone permission to a folder, you just don't allow them to have permissions. But in a very complex environment, you might have one user that's part of multiple groups. It might be too hard to determine whether that user actually has permissions to the folder. So what you can do is add a user, or in this case we did the group, and we deny it. So no matter what other group we add that user to, he will never have permissions to this folder. Any user put in the sales group will not have permissions to this folder. When I click OK, it's telling me the deny permissions will take precedent over allow permissions. So U1 will no longer have access to this folder. Okay, now that's the old way of doing things. Now I'm going to show you the new way. From the server manager, click in File and Storage Services. Then click on Shares. This, you might not see the benefit right away of using the new method. But guys, I can take this server manager and install it on Windows 10. And then I can remotely administer all of my servers from my Windows 10 box. So if you install the server manager on your Windows 10 box, you will then go to Manage, Add Servers, all the servers that you want. And when I went to here, I would see all the shares for all my machines on one box. So right now I only have one file server, but if I had 10 different file servers, I'd see them all here, as long as I added them to this server manager. Again, we're using central authentication, so it's easy to administer them all from this one location because I'm using the same user account on all those machines. if you weren't a domain, there's additional tricks that you need to do, but for right now, I'm going to show you how to add one server just so you see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. No, Manage, Add Servers.
When I went into your file and storage service and then shares, it had an error and it doesn't show the data file.
Look right here. Look on my screen.
Yeah.
One or more errors occurred during the refresh.
Open the command prompt and say, who am I?
Okay, close that out. Close that out. And then, oh, that's why.
Stored.
Click on that. Server manager. Open server. Oh, file server. You can try to see in something service, the user and follow with the service. I would reboot this machine.
I wouldn't worry. Yeah, just reboot the machine, that virtual machine. Okay, so I'm going to go to Manage, Add Servers. I don't have many servers, guys, so I'm not even typing the name. I'm just going to do Find Now and find the one that says DC DNS. Right. Highlight it and move it to the right. And click OK. Once you do, click, oh, it refreshed automatically. So now I can see the shares on my DC and the shares on the file server, all from one location. What's the goal of a network admin? Be as lazy as possible. If I can do everything from this one screen and manage all my shares from here without switching from box to box, that's what I want to do. That's kind of the whole purpose of the server manager. In fact, I would, every time I log in, I would have that open. That's where I can do 90% of my work off of one machine. Install this on your Windows 10 box. You install some other tools on top of that. You can pretty much do everything from your Windows 10 box. Keep in mind, guys, that that server you're dealing with might be in downtown Miami. It might be a data center in North Carolina. You don't know. So a lot of times you won't physically have access to the server. All you have access to is the server manager.
So then it's SMB you're going to use.
Well, SMB is a network file system going to be used to access the share, but the server manager is using Windows Instrument to manage all this remotely, to set up the share. So guys, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to All Task, create a new share. This is the new school method. I can create two types of file systems. An SMB, small message block or server message block, or NFS, which is network file share. This is used for Unix, Linux. So if you have some Macs, you might want to go this method. But I'm going to stick to SMB because SMB works on Macs, Linux, Windows. I'm going to do a quick method. So now it's asking me, which server do I want to create that share on? I want to choose my file server. Hey, did it work, Lily?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so it's going to ask me, which server do you want to put it on? You want me to come back?
It's quick, right? That's it.
Yeah, I did quick.
Sure, quick?
Yes. And it's asking me what disk on that server do I want to put it on. This machine only has one disk. By default, it's going to create it on the C drive in a folder called shares. That's what we've been using so far anyways. You can put in some other location, I'm just using the default. We're going to create a folder called public. It's going to be under the C drive under a folder called shares. Click next. I'm going to call it public. This is my NTFS path. This is my SMB path. Both referring to the same location. Click next. Enable access-based enumeration. Some people are inquisitive. They like to explore. I can create a policy that maps a network drive to everyone. If I turn this on, you won't see that map network drive if you don't have rights to the folder. Security by obscurity. Just hide it. You don't have rights to it, just don't even show it to people. So they can't mess with it. The next one is allow caching. If I had a satellite office, I have a big main office. On here I have a file server, and then I have a satellite office with some other server. Could be a DHCP server, could be a domain controller, a DNS server, whatever it is. And I have a client on the satellite office. On that machine, I would install a feature called branch cache. Do you see right there that little checkbox in the center? And when this machine connects to that shared folder, this server would automatically cache the data. Automagical. As long as you install branch cache, you have branch cache enabled on your server, on your share, it would automatically cache it. So anyone who connects to that share from that point on will actually connect and grab the cache files. You can also right-click your a shared folder and check allow cache locally as well. Has anyone heard of the feature, like if this machine had Windows 10 and this machine had Windows 10, and this machine did updates, and this machine went to Microsoft server and saw that there were updates available, it would try to find if any machine in a local network had a cache and just download it from there to save on bandwidth. So there's also a hidden feature like that, caching your Windows updates as well. So you'll automatically download updates, cache them for anyone else in the network. And then another computer updates, you're just going to get them from you. Really secure environments, you don't want to allow this to happen. Do you want me to download your personal educational records onto my laptop and walk out of this building and get my laptop stolen? So in secure environments, you might not want to allow that. The school doesn't allow that through regulation. I'm going to leave it alone. Last is, do you want to encrypt the data? To do that, efficiently, I need to create a certificate server and go through that. Click next. And here are permissions. So if we go to customize permissions, we have both security permissions and share permissions in one location. What did they do with the share permissions? Everyone full control. So these are effectively off. It also disabled, oh no, it didn't disable inheritance. So I'm gonna, because we're not doing DFS, but I'm gonna disable inheritance under the permissions tab. When you disable it, we're going to convert the permissions that you inherited as locally set. You're just pretty much going to copy them to this folder. I'm going to remove my 2 users and add, up here guys, domain users. And give them modifier rights. No, we're not going to do cells for this one. I want to, earlier he said special permissions were still grayed out. Guys, these are the most common permissions. I could get very granular and really define permissions like, I'll give you the permission to traverse a folder and not mess with the folder. Meaning, you'll be able to go into one folder, then go into another folder, and the second folder is where you have permissions. The first folder, you just can traverse it. Microsoft is trying to hide these because they're trying to they've actually reduced a lot of them because it just confused people. It made a mess of permissions. So I could look at, there used to be hundreds of these in the past. Now, if I just look at the, they really slimmed it down quite a bit. I can traverse a folder, meaning I can execute the folder, go into it, find another folder, go into that, and then do something with that second folder. I can read the attributes. I can read extended attributes. Read attributes is, let me show you real quick. I'm going to show you read old school attributes. If I right click a folder, these are attributes. These are old FAT32 attributes that we inherited. Like, does the file need to be backed up? Things like that. Extended attributes. Those are our new NTFS permissions. Those are under extended attributes. Create a file, create a folder, write a file, write attributes, delete a subfolder file. I'm not going to go into this too much, but be aware. I could give someone no permissions other than change permissions. If I gave someone change permissions, what do they have? Essentially full control. If you can go into a folder and change the permissions, you can give yourself any permission that you want. Or I can give someone the ability to take ownership. I'll go into that. Guys, I'm going to go back to basic permissions. Never in my life have I ever had to go into granular permissions. These are sufficient. In fact, if I'm a Unix guy, I come from a Unix background. I don't even need this many. I need read, write, execute. That's all you really need. But it's a Windows world, so this is what we're going to deal with. Guys, I can do conditions. Like time of day. So you can access this folder only between 8 and 9. 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. I can do conditions like this. I can do something called access control. Basically, I can have it scan every document that that is placed in the folder. And you know how you have multiple law firms all sharing one office and one server? So I could say, anytime you see a document with Smith versus Jones, give Fred modify rights to it. It's called a dynamic access control. A lot of times you'll see it as DAC. It's kind of an interesting thing. Very few people do it, but you know, in a small office where you have multiple doctor's offices in one location, all using one server, you don't have to have someone who knows permissions. They drop a document in, as long as it has a certain case number or something, then it will get the right permissions. So I'm going to click OK. I can do things like, right now, the administrators group will own that share. I could change it, give any other user ownership rights. If you have ownership rights, what happens? You have changed permission rights. I'm going to click OK. Next. Then create my share. So I'm going to open up a command prompt and map that network drive. Net use asterisk and I can do this on any machine in my network and access that network drive. If I go to this PC, I now see I have the data in the public. If you're going to do later classes with me, I'll show you how to avoid this altogether. How many people go into a company and see 6 or 7 map drive letters? It's really hard to support. They have this new thing called, it's not new, but rarely used, called DFS, where you can put all of your shares under one drive letter, regardless of which server that's on. That's another class. Okay.
Network path does not have.
Let me come. Go back to your server manager, and do not click OK. Oh, you didn't on the DC.
I'm supposed to go
No, just leave it. Just go back here and use your DC, which is the CS02 you have in DC.
okay.
Okay, guys, we're going to take our second break, and then we're going to come back and do storage pools, which is Chapter 5. Guys, I call it storage pools, but it's really, the new name they call it is storage spaces, same thing.
Mine is like a,
Yeah, I saw
I'm
that
heavy.
earlier, I just thought it wasn't something we're gonna have to use.
When you also put that on.
So let's go over here. Okay, that's really right.
Go,
Maybe it's here, no?
go back here.
Yes.
Your name is, see, 02, yeah, that's good. Oh, because you have a space.
Okay, let's take our second break. Let's keep it short, 5 minutes. Remind me to, I don't even know if I want to start this at this point. Do I want to start? No, actually, I'm not going to start this. I won't be able to get done before the end of the class anyways.
We done?
Okay, yeah, so let's finish for today. And I'm going to upload this video